Benefactor underwriting for this broadcast has been provided by a grant from Republic Bank. The power of red is back. Major underwriting support for this broadcast has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Customers Bank, Collins Building Services, Marks Paneth. Additional underwriting support has been provided by grants from AmTrust Title, Bank of America, Capital One Bank, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties LLC, Handler Real Estate Organization, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Catsimatidis Red Apple Group, New Banks, Meridian Capital Group, Ocean First Bank, RPW Group, TD Bank, the One Stop Property Group, and these friends.
Everybody wants to be in the Hamptons. Everybody's moving out there. Businesses are growing. Retail is growing, the restaurant business. So today, with the help of my friend Barry Acrongold, my executive producer, we're talking about what's happening, developments taking place in the Hamptons. As my guests include Barry Acrongold, who's the chairman of the Fortune Financial Investment Corp, an owner of properties in the Hamptons. Chad Gesson, who is a principal and partner of First Dunes Chatham Development. We'll call him the king of West Hampton on this show. And then the man who's very involved with East Hampton, Ray Harden, who's the principal and partner of Ben Kropinski Builder. So Barry, since you're the executive producer, what's happening? You've been in the Hamptons, let's say, for the last 10 years, 15 years. But when you and I got together, you said it's so busy, things are taking place that you've never seen before.
Well, the Hamptons is on fire, and it looks like it's going to continue in that way. Prior to the pandemic, we were very worried about what was going to happen, but sometime, I guess, towards the end of last year, things really, really picked up. And what we're seeing is that the Hamptons is becoming a year-round destination, where in the past it was mostly seasonal. And we're signing new leases at record prices, and we're also all of my conversations with the retailers is that they're doing a lot of business out there. So I think the Hamptons on an upswing. There's a major change going on. And with Zoom and some of these other things that became popular during the pandemic, the Hamptons is more busy than ever.
So here's a different question. You're an owner operator of certain businesses and operations in the retail business and the hospitality sector. Now we talk about Chad and Ray, who are in a totally different business. How are, in order for the businesses to grow, where are the people finding housing? The working people, the people who are working on Chad and Ray's developments. Where are these people living? Are they traveling an hour a day to get to the Hamptons to develop? Chad and Ray?
I think, you've hit the nail on the head with the major problem on the entire East End, both the North and South Fork, of availability of affordable working class housing out here is definitely an issue. We're lucky in West Hampton Beach and West Hampton and the western portion of the South Fork that we're adjacent to central Suffolk County. So we have pretty good availability of labor here. So that's generally where they come from. We do have a good amount of our specialty contractors that drive west to come to us, which this year I think has been a relief for them to be getting out of the hubbub of the far eastern Hamptons, where there's a lot more traffic internally than there ever was before.
The housing out here in East Hampton is just horrible. Every time somebody proposes, affordable housing somewhere, everyone, doesn't want it in their backyard. There's been several places that have been proposed, and it just seems to be a constant fight to get it done. But a lot of our subs, like I said, are coming from up west, driving, an hour, some an hour and a half a day to come out because there's so much work out here. The thing is, with all the traffic, with homeowners staying out, traffic it's almost at a standstill every day. I have a couple of guys that live, should take them an hour to get home. It's taking them 3 hours to get home. I don't know how they do it, but there's a lot of work here.
I mean, yesterday I had to attend a reception in Glen Cove. We left Manhattan at 4 o'clock. We arrived in Glen Cove at 6 o'clock. Okay. I came back in 45 minutes, but just the example of the traffic today is unbelievable in general. More people are driving, and it's becoming harder and harder to maneuver the roads over there.
This wave that's crashing on the Hamptons right now was cresting all year. I mean, we were lucky enough to have projects that took us right through the pandemic. We had some critical infrastructure projects we were working on out here that had to go through. So I commute every day from Williamsburg, Brooklyn. So I'm driving from 4:30 in the morning to West Hampton. I got to May 15th, way before Memorial Day, and 111 was backed up at 6:05 a.m. That's the gateway to the Hamptons. That's right before you get on Sunrise Highway from the expressway. And in the 20 years that I'm building out on Dune Road in West Hampton, I've never even seen traffic at that hour west of Gabrewski Airport or Hampton Bays. And, from there to the Shinnecock Inlet, it was an hour plus for the workers in the early morning.
With regard to the affordable housing, I mean, there isn't affordable housing. So, I mean, but most municipalities want to provide certain levels of housing. What's happening in East Hampton, Ray? That's your headquarters, let's say.
Yeah. And again, there is not a lot of affordable housing. They have just completed a few projects that are booked right away. And there's another one proposed for a site on Springs Fireplace Road in East Hampton that everyone is fighting. And it's going to be 50 units. And everyone's like, we don't want it there. We don't want it there. Again, they want affordable housing. It's a big issue every time there's an election. Yet when it comes to fruition, they don't want it in their backyard. People just don't want it next to them.
You have to remember, this is also not New York City or Western Suffolk or Nassau, where there's a sewer everywhere and you can build a high density project. A lot of these parts of the South Fork are groundwater management zones where, already just to put a house on a piece of property, the density limitations are severe because of the septic issues. And, on top of that, the multi-agency approvals, are much harder when you're dealing with Suffolk County Health as another element in this, along with the towns, the villages, the planning hurdles are huge out here.
Here's the question. Are people who are going out to the Hamptons and buying these homes living there full time, or are they just there, let's say, from the May to October season?
There are more people staying out permanently. We've had a huge increase in the school population since the pandemic started. Some schools up 50%, another school up 30, 35%. So we have seen an increase in students, which means that staying here full, year round. Sometimes husbands or, whoever the breadwinner is will commute to the city and then come out on the weekends. But there's a lot of people that are staying for sure.
One of the things that drove the value of our houses going back 6-7 years was we were an early mover on building houses that were year-round capable on Dune Road. Coastal homes that didn't have to be shut down for the winter was a big part of First Dunes' sell in the early 2000s when we started building out here. And we keep doubling down on that by building, more airtight, more energy efficient homes that make people in the extreme elements we have out here feel comfortable year round, not have to shut these houses down. And so from our client base, as the pandemic rolled in, we take care of our customers going forward into the future. I mean, I have one person who was resident from Central Park West with 2 kids in private school in Manhattan. And during the pandemic, she put both those kids into West Hampton Beach public schools. And actually this year, one of them's going to do her senior year back in Manhattan, and the other one's staying out here in West Hampton, and the mom's commuting back and forth. On our, older families, who don't have children in the house school age, they're using these houses every single weekend at a minimum, and usually, 5 days out of the week, 4 days out of the week, and then bouncing back to the city or to their homes in the West. And we sell a lot of houses to people who don't even live in the city. They live in Nassau County, or they live in Westchester or Connecticut. And now people want the space. They appreciate the beautiful countryside here, the views, and they're living here all the time.
And we're seeing the same thing at the 1770 House Restaurant and at Chittanova Restaurant in East Hampton, where usually it would slow down in the fall and winter, but we're busier than ever. And one of the problems we have is that because of the housing shortage, we have trouble getting employees because there's nowhere for them to live. But business is booming and people are staying, and people don't need to be in the city these days because most of Midtown is still not in the office buildings and people are out in the Hamptons.
I drove past our resort project over here, our property, an 8-unit bungalow situation on the Bayfront on Dune Road this morning. And we have 6 units occupied on a Wednesday morning in October. The prior owners were closing that place the morning after Labor Day. We run it to Thanksgiving and run an average occupancy of 60% straight through from Labor Day to Thanksgiving.
What's happening with regard to the planned, suite hotels or hotels being planned in the East Hampton, West Hampton, and so on? I mean, Riverhead has their share of hotels. They have more than enough right now, I'd say, over there. But what about in the other sections, Ray?
You're asking about the inns in East Hampton?
Right, the inns and, any possibilities of hotels, new hotels opening up.
The thing is here, we're kind of tight on open space or what can be done with existing properties. There's not a lot of vacant land here that can be used to do a hotel or something of that sort. And again, I think it would go back to, it would be a big fight to get it through, because again, people don't want it in their backyard. It's very residential out here. The central core of the village is basically your downtown shopping, so to speak. So I don't see any big hotel ever being built.
In West Hampton, there's a bed and breakfast that was approved last year, a 3-story bed and breakfast at the location of the old Capital One North Fork Bank branch on Main Street. West Hampton is just wrapping up right now its sewer improvement district. So it's sewering all of Main Street, and that bed and breakfast will connect to that sewer system. So it's going to start construction, I understand, once the sewer work is complete.
How many units will be in that development?
I'm not exactly sure, but it's not a lot, maybe 30, 40.
Didn't that affect a lot of businesses doing that on Main Street? Because I see a lot of places are for sale over there.
I mean, West Hampton's Main Street is in a boom. It's an unbelievable thing. I mean, I think West Hampton really got the luckiest timing on earth, and the mayor of the village happens to be fantastic and has really done amazing things to make West Hampton a place that's nice to work. The village staff are easy to work with and cooperative, and they've moved a lot of things forward. And one of the things they moved forward was this long pending concept of sewering Main Street and connecting it to the existing sewer treatment plant at Gabrewski Airport. As a result, they hit the timing perfectly. The project started in February 2020. So it was very impactful, but most of the impact was from March to October of 2020, at which point most things were closed. Main Street was pretty much back up and running last summer. It was just not perfect. And by the time this summer came, there was no memory of the construction project anymore. There's a little disruption with some piping going on as you go out of town, where they're running the lines now up to the airport. But the rejuvenation of the village is unbelievable. And it hasn't even really started yet, because the new sewer connections aren't available. So existing retail that was limited to no bathroom because it had no septic flow will be able to have a restaurant, a bar, whatever's permissible under zoning. They won't have the limitations of their sanitary systems any longer.
Now, what about the Amazon warehouse that's being built in West Hampton?
I think it's pretty much built. I drove past it this morning. One of the fastest construction projects I've ever seen. I think, to be good because, Amazon is making a tremendous amount of deliveries down here on Dune Road all the time, all over the village. You're seeing, Amazon's own delivery trucks around here. Delivery times are quicker to the Hamptons than they were 18 months ago. And I think, getting the trucks off the expressway and bringing this stuff, into the East End and let it get distributed from here is probably a positive overall.
What's the status of the gaming, with the Indian reservation taking place in the future?
I believe they were approved for a casino not too long ago. So that sounds like that's going to move forward. It's certainly an area that is going to get built up for sure going forward. So time will tell how they fund it and how they get it going.
I mean, we definitely need some 21st century infrastructure out here in the Hamptons if growth's going to continue like this. And I think the first place to start would be getting us off the same train tracks that Teddy Roosevelt took to the Spanish-American War and upgrading the Long Island Railroad from Eastport all the way out to Montauk.
There's been a lot of controversy about the airport, basically not in West Hampton, but East Hampton. What's your thoughts about that? I know you're involved with the community heavily in East Hampton, right?
Yeah, my thought is I would like to see it stay open. People don't realize it brings a lot of money into East Hampton. These planes, fly in, and these people are spending money in the Hamptons. So I think it needs to remain open. Houses were built close to the airport, and then the complaints started coming. I live pretty close to a train track, but I'm not going to the Long Island Railroad and tell them to move their train track because I don't like to hear the noise at 3:30 in the morning.
One of the things that makes East Hampton so unique is that it has an airport. And that's why you see not only local people coming, but you see an international group coming to the Hamptons. And I think it's one of the big attractions of East Hampton. And Ray is right. It's a huge driver for the economy, for jobs, and for all of the positive things that are happening in East Hampton and the eastern towns.
Yeah,
I think the focus is a bit lost. Down here on Dune Road, where we build most of our houses, we're the overflight route for the helicopters back and forth that both go to East Hampton and they also go to Gabrayski. And, they're supposed to fly 1 mile offshore. They never fly 1 mile offshore. They fly right over the beach all the time. And I think the issue is less, having the village, they wouldn't have to shut down or limit the flights coming in if the noise rules and the spacing rules and the height rules were followed, and if the FAA enforced some of that.
Barry, when you and I got together, we were talking about the new retailers or what's happening in retail. Let's talk about the retail.
Prior to the pandemic, most of the existing tenants were having trouble paying their rent, and we had to work with them for concessions and things like that. And then all of a sudden, the Hamptons just exploded, where we had, 6 and 7 offers on every vacant space we had at probably, 50% or more of the rents. And all of the retailers that are in Manhattan that weren't doing any business all wanted to be out in East Hampton and in the eastern towns. And we saw a tremendous uptick. We had Todd Shoes we signed for a lease, and where prior to the pandemic, people were doing pop-ups. Now people are fighting to do, because there's so much competition for the spaces, they're doing longer term leases. Even some of the existing tenants that have been there a long time are being priced out by these major retailers that want to be in the Hamptons. And people in the Hamptons are shopping. If you walk down Madison Avenue in Manhattan, the stores are empty. You go to East Hampton, the stores are busy. Everyone's carrying shopping bags and shopping and spending money. So that's where people want to be. And I think the prices will continue to go up.
We were in West Hampton and we noticed they had a sidewalk sale, but they weren't doing sidewalk sales because there was no need. The retailers in West Hampton are doing probably the best they've done before. The restaurants, a limited number, are doing excellent. And they're not even saying, I'm going to close in October. I'll stay open as long as I can.
Our restaurants are open year round. Both Chitanova and 1770 House are open year round. And, we were limited until recently because of the space requirements, but and we had to sit people outside, but now people are coming year round.
Ray, you're the king of luxury housing. What's the price point that our homes being built, yours, and then I want to ask Chad about what his price point is.
Well, it all really depends on finishes, what people put into it. But I mean, you could probably start at 700 a square foot and go up as high as 1,800 a square foot, depending on what you put into it. We've had a lot of houses out here go to bidding wars for purchase. And it's not just large houses, it's small houses as well. So there's been a huge boom in the real estate market out here. And like I said, people are, they're going to bidding wars.
Chad?
Yeah, cost is interesting because, we're in West Hampton, we're definitely a lower cost market to much of the eastern hamlets. That said, we're starting a little lower per square foot, probably closer to 550, 650 a foot for a more basic house. And yeah, obviously the sky's the limit as we add finishes and mechanical systems in those. That said, I mean, people really, our appreciation here in West Hampton Dunes, West Hampton Beach, West Hampton Dunes has just blown up, off the charts in the past few years. As a point of example, I have a beach house that I sold that was a spec that we built in 2019. We signed the contract, we completed it in 20 and turned it over right before the pandemic for $5.9 million. And we just signed a deal for an exact same specification house on almost the exact same lot, about a quarter mile away for $7.95 million. So, that shows you sort of the appreciation. Cost appreciation has been a big, concern among the clients right now. Whereas construction costs, we build with such high quality materials that the reality is that the construction cost increases on materials have been limited. They've been there, but they're background noise to the other costs that we're facing. But the appreciation, like I said, especially here in West Hampton, has really been driven probably more than anything else by the massive cost appreciation to the east, and then also the traffic in the east, which has become not just coming in and coming out, but even the inter-road traffic, back roads that used to be known only to us locals. Now, Waze just sends you down someone's street, has you make a left down their driveway and go back through the woods and come back out. And, it's a real problem out there.
What's happening in Hampton Bays? We're talking about West Hampton, East Hampton, Southampton, but I haven't heard the terms Hampton Bays.
Hampton Bays Hampton Bays is a big area. We just worked on a project up in the Red Creek portion of Hampton Bays, which is extremely desirable right now. That's north of Sunrise Highway. That's the Peconic view that's looking out at Shelter Island. That gives you, if you're somebody who's coming in from overseas or out of state, that's fantastic. You can take your heavy jet into Gabrayski and be in Hampton Bays with a beautiful waterfront, multi-acre compound in 15 minutes with no traffic. And then if you want to go to Southampton, you can be there in 20. And so that's a popular spot. When you get down to south of the highway, Hampton Bays, has actually a good amount of affordable housing, still some small housing, small lots near the schools and things like that. So that's not a major target for, the city people who are coming and pumping the prices up. And then the waterfront blocks are also cut up into pretty small lots. So it's not the most desirable pieces out there. So it hasn't been the focus, I think, of really a lot of the frenzy recently.
Ray, Sag Harbor.
Sag Harbor, same thing, small lots. So mostly there is renovation work. There's a big historic district in Sag Harbor as well. So you're limited as what you can do, but not so much really big homes in Sag Harbor. Just the lots are tiny.
For us, and I think a lot of this market you've seen is really multi-generational family compounds, which kind of requires a larger house, more square footage, more bedrooms and bathrooms. A lot of times I refer to the houses we build, they're basically private resorts. Every bedroom has its own suite, has its own bathroom. Most of the times they're having their own balconies also. We've got swimming pools, tennis courts, water, docks, boats. The big houses is really where the appreciation is. And that's also where the lines of buyers are. As you get into these more niche products, there's still volume out there, but it's not as eager as the more rare family compound scale properties.
What about the North Fork, the wine country? Any thoughts?
It's the next frontier. It's beautiful up there. Again, there's not a lot of land preservation. All of this Peconic tax that we go, and every one of our transfers has the Peconic Bay trust tax on it. That money's going to preserve the North Fork, which is a beautiful thing, but it also limits the amount of land there is to develop. I think it's a sleeper in the respect that the comps don't bear out what's really happening up there. The North Fork is a buy and build market, not a spec market. There is a low price spec market, but there are lots of huge, beautiful custom homes like Ray and I build that you'll never know how much they cost, but they're $6, $7, $8 million comps when you put all the numbers together, even though you're only seeing a land value record at $1,250,000 or $975,000. But these are gorgeous compounds on top of bluffs with endless views of the Long Island Sound and Connecticut. It's beautiful up there. One of my favorite places.
In conclusion, I'd like to say, I think it's very bright, the future for the Hamptons. And I'm happy that they have great builders like Chad and Ray over there, owners like Barry. And I'd like to thank Barry, Chad, and Ray, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.